Hey guys, welcome back to Board Watch. I'm Brian.
I'm Joey.
And we are going to get into some history and lore, because you guys asked for it. We will do it. Today we're probably going to be watching Seasons 1 and 2's history and lore, because we're already finished with Season 2. And then we might watch Episode 1 of Season 3 as well. So it's a lot of watching. Looking at like 3 hours. I don't know how long the discussions for the history and lore are actually going to be. I'll still write stuff down if there's something that I find interesting, or if you find something interesting, just tell me to write it down so we can talk about it. Some of the stuff I believe kind of repeats itself a little bit. It'll tell like Robert's rebellion from like multiple points of view, from like the Stark's point of view, from the Baratheon's point of view. So like some of it will kind of be a little repetitive, I think. But, I mean, it'll still be interesting because, like, something that we've always been talking about in our discussions is perspective and motivation. Yeah. So, like, even though we're going to be hearing some of the same stories over and over, it's always just really cool to see, you know, what people were thinking as they were doing it. Yeah. So, so let's get into History and Lore Season 1.
Ooh. They hunted with rearward bows and armed themselves with blades of obsidian. Their wise men were called Green Seers and were possessed of powerful magic. 12,000 years ago, the first men came from the eastern continent, crossing a land bridge called the Arm of Dawn. Riding their great horses and wielding weapons of bronze, they cut down the children's forests and weirwoods. A terrible war raged between the children and the first men that lasted for centuries. At long last, the two races sought an end to the years of horror and bloodshed. They met on a small isle in the centre of a great lake called the God's Eye. It was there they forged the pact. The first men would be granted dominion over the coastlands, the mountains, the high plains and the bogs, but the deep forest would forever belong to the children. But the pact could not withstand the coming of the Andals, a race of tall, fair-haired warriors. They attacked with fire and weapons of steel. Centuries of war followed, and the Andals conquered every kingdom in Westeros, save one, the North. The kings of winter were able to withstand the Andal invasion, and descendants of the first men dwell there to this day, and continue to worship the old gods. One hero of this fabled age was Bran the Builder. Bran raised the wall and built the stronghold of Winterfell, establishing House Stark and reigning as the first king in the North. Other legends tell of the Grey King in the Iron Islands. Grey King took a mermaid to wife and defeated Naga, the first sea dragon.
Great cities were built and roadways paved, all of which led back to Valyria. The freehold would prosper for nearly 5,000 years. But it was not to last. An event that became known only as the Doom laid waste to the Valyrians, their capital city, and its surrounding lands. The peninsula itself was shattered, becoming what is now the Smoking Sea. Every dragon was thought to be lost, as were the Valyrian spells, knowledge, and recorded history. Thus, the mighty empire collapsed.
There are barely
Castle Black, the Shadow Tower, and
recruiting officers.
Now there's only less than 1,000 members of the Night's Watch, so most of them are at Castle Black, so they can't even defend the whole wall.
oh shit.
These stalwart brothers in black continue to protect us even to this day from the evils that lurk in the shadows.
So he has to know.
An absurd lie. A fairy tale spun by many a wet nurse in the north.
Never mind.
To be sure.
That answers my question. Fucking die with this.
A triumph of engineering, perhaps.
The Seven is a single deity with 7 aspects, each symbolizing a different area of life, though most people refer to the 7 as separate gods.
The mother is prayed to for mercy and watches over fertility, childbirth, and peace. The father sits in judgment over souls. The warrior is prayed to for protection, valor, and skill in battle. The crone is the symbol of wisdom and foresight. The smith watches over creation and craftsmanship. The maiden symbolizes purity, love, and beauty. Finally, there is the stranger, rarely prayed to, who who represents death.
But when Torrhen saw the size of Aegon's now mighty host, along with his monstrous dragons, he knew he couldn't subject his followers to the horror of another field of fire. He bent the knee and swore fealty to Aegon, who allowed the Starks to maintain their lordship over the region as Lords Paramount and Wardens of the North. Without question, Torrhen Stark saved thousands of lives that day. He was ever after known as the king who knelt.
I wonder if Rob will kneel. Getting a greater appreciation for Daenerys.
Oh, okay.
Because I get where her point is going to be. Remember I was saying it was just for her? I see what she could possibly offer everyone now.
There are some maesters who have earned a link forged of Valyrian steel. This signifies knowledge of the higher mysteries, commonly known as magic. Only one maester in 100 possesses such a link, as this field of study is frowned upon by many in the Order.
We haven't met anybody who has that. Didn't somebody say they had the magic already? Not Maester Lewin. But
Maester Lewin said he tried to do magic.
Lord Rickard demanded a trial by combat. Aerys declared fire the champion of House Targaryen, and had Lord Rickard suspended from the rafters of the throne room while pyromancers lit a blaze beneath him. As he burned, Brandon was brought into the throne room. A leather cord attached to a strangulation device was wrapped around his neck. Aerys told Brandon his father was a dead man, but there was a chance to save him. A long sword was placed on the floor just out of Brandon's reach, and the more he struggled to reach it, the more the cord tightened around his throat. Brandon Stark strangled himself, trying to free his father, who was roasted alive in his own honor.
Oh, he may have appeared to be a capable ruler at first, but that was due in no small part to his counselors, led by the hand of the king, Tywin Lannister.
Tywin Lannister was
There may have been years of peace and prosperity during Aerys' reign. Rhaegar went south with Lyanna, hiding her away in Dorne. What harm he inflicted on the poor girl, the gods only know. Brandon Stark, Lyanna's eldest brother, was outraged. He rode to King's Landing to confront the king and demand his sister's safe return. Instead, Aerys had him executed, his father, Rickard Stark, as well. Baratheons, Starks, and Tullys all called their banners. Once our rebellion
Oh yeah, I think the fish is in the middle there.
the Mad King
Yeah,
stayed.
fish is Tully, the birds are the Aryans.
That bit of dragon blood in my veins came in well, as it made me a distant relation to the Targaryen dynasty blood of my long-lost ancestor, Orys. The truth of it is, I took it. I sit on the Iron Throne. I rule the Seven Kingdoms from the Red Keep.
So that's another reason why he had some right to rule over Ned Stark or say someone else, because he did technically have Targaryen. Had a little bit of Targaryen blood in him.
Lord Stark reached the city gates to find that Tywin Lannister, Lord of Casterly Rock, had already sacked the city in Robert's Main. House Lannister had remained neutral up to this point, ignoring requests for help from both the Crown and the rebels. Now that Robert's eventual victory was assured, it seemed Lord Tywin had finally chosen a side.
I sent my personal maester to attend to Sir Barristan Selmy instead. His wounds were more severe. Even though Sir Barristan was a member of Aerys' Kingsguard and fought on the opposing side, that man's bravery and loyalty was something to behold.
So he had him.
But this meant my wounds would take longer to heal, and I couldn't ride to King's Landing myself. I sent the one man I trusted over anyone else in this world.
Was he scared?
In my place.
Talk about that after. Did you write that down? Robert stopped going to King's Landing.
As I had suspected, Aerys opened the city gates and welcomed my men.
Thinking that it was
Our
like a
plan
Trojan
was
horse.
clear. Crush Aerys' remaining bannermen and remove the remnants of the royal family as quickly and efficiently as possible. When our vassal, the Rains of Castamere, dared to rise up against the Lannisters, They learned how dangerous it can be to taunt a lion. I, Tywin Lannister, led the assault on Castamere to put down this rebellion. I made an example of them, to anyone who doubts our might. They even made a quaint song about the fates of the Rains of Castamere. Sadly, there are no rains left to hear it.
They were singing.
Today,
Ron
the
was singing
golden
it
lion
before
of
battle, like the
Lannister
whole
is
guys
rightly
were-
How do you know
admired
that?
and feared throughout the Seven Kingdoms. Our words are, hear me roar.
Its ancestral sword, Ice, was forged in ancient Valyria and has been passed down through the generations.
Oh, is that
House
Valerian
Stark
steel?
remains steadfast in its support of the Night's Watch, even as the once illustrious order has fallen on hard times. Much like their sigil, the Grey Direwolf, House Stark is the stuff of legend in the north and throughout the Seven Kingdoms. And their family words, winter is coming,
Serve as a reminder of their beginnings in the wake of the long night, and a grim portent of things to come.
Nice.
Wow, that was awesome. That was so much information.
Right?
It makes so much more sense.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen this, go watch this. Like, like this gives so much importance to the end. I mean, it's like understanding the history of like us, like in real life. Like, it's so important to know all this stuff.
Right.
They do a good job of really. How does he know? How does George R.R. Martin? Jesus, his entire world is in his head. Like, he has to come up with all of this. Like, ooh, man, he kept all that straight in his head. That's insane.
Well, I mean, fantasy settings like to create worlds. I mean, Lord of the Rings had the Silmarillion, which is kind of like, you know, the history of that universe and stuff like that.
That's
So,
true.
like when you're creating like that's what makes this so much more rich, though, because like if you have like great heroes of the past to call upon, if you actually like know their stories before people in the modern times start referencing them, it just makes it more real.
Not to take anything away from Lord of the Rings. I'm sure a lot of people. I'm a huge fan of Lord of the Rings. But that being said, like we were talking about, motivation is huge in this series, in the show, and it goes back even into the history, which is fun. Like, like I've never read the Lord of the Rings books. I've watched all the movies, but even in the movies, you don't see motivation as much. Like, there's these like calls to action, like huge moral ties, and like
It's pretty
right
black
and
and white,
wrong,
like good versus evil,
good
yeah.
versus evil. But George R.R. Martin like beautifully explains life, and just that like there's so many other perspectives, and just even how the lores are told by like different people. You can truly see where each person's coming from, what they're saying, what they actually mean. Like when Viserys is talking, and then versus when Tywin's talking, versus when Robert's talking. Did Ned talk, or who was talking for Ned?
It was mostly Robin Brand that spoke for House Stark.
Yeah, and so, you know, Ned having... I mean, you see all these different people's perspectives, and it gives a whole huge picture of just kind of like... Because you get so caught up in everything, and then you kind of look back and go, whoa, this is a whole, like, piece of artwork, pretty much. And so, I mean, there's a few things that I wanted to bring up.
And you can see, like, everybody's got these titles in the show. So some of the titles, like, sometimes they'll announce Joffrey as King of the Andals and the First Man.
Yeah.
You know, like, Protector of the Seven Kingdoms. So now you actually kind of know who the Andals and the First Men are.
Yeah, too. And that gives so much more power and, like, gravity to what they're trying to say and what they're, like, proclaiming this guy to be or whoever to be.
And the Starks are direct descendants of the First Men who joined with the Children of the Forest to fight the White Walkers back.
Because they were fighting each other, and then they had to stop to fight the White Walkers.
Right.
Thousands of years ago to erect the wall. I like all the fact too, because like they throw a lot of other mythical creatures in there, and you know,
like giants, and
griffins,
and Nagas that the Greyjoys had to fight.
And Nagas, like these sea creatures, and then like falcons, and like so. I'm curious.
Mythical falcons.
Well, I mean, like a giant falcon, but like who knows? Even into the newest season, like even for you guys who are ahead, like it's kind of cool because you guys don't even know what creatures are going to come in like to this newest season, and so it's cool to see like. Just because, like, dragons were a myth, and then they were real. And then, like, White Walkers were a myth, and then they were real. And, like...
Direwolves.
Direwolves were...
They knew of them north of the Wall, I think.
Yeah, but they didn't really know of them southern, and they still don't really know them. So, like, oh, man, I would love to see a direwolf army if the North could just get more direwolves. Oh, my God. But Anyway, so like it's cool to see like what the possibility is, and it's kind of like real life because some things are true and some things aren't. So it's kind of like it's giving an homage to that, kind of like that. There's real truths to even the myths, and
you can see how family names kind of get passed down, like because Bran the Builder, and then his uncle Brandon Stark.
And not to go ahead and take a quick drink on me, foreshadowing. I like how the names foreshadow kind of to what these people are going to possibly become a little bit. Just because even I can kind of see in their make and their like how they are as people, kind of like what they could do. It's like Bran the Builder, like building up, and so somebody else, Rickon and
Rickard. Yeah. So Ned's dad is Rickard Stark. But they obviously named Rickon after Rickard. And then, there's Rhaella Targaryen, who was Aerys' wife, the Mad King's wife,
who gave birth
to Rhaegar.
Yeah, to Rhaegar.
And so like even she's naming her dragons after.
Yeah, and that's kind of like how they keep the tradition. So I like that part of it as well, but. It gives such a more full picture to see the history and lore, because I mean it gives so much more depth to what you're actually watching and the reasons for all. Because you kind of just buy into it if you watch it without the lore, but then if you watch the lore, you understand it. It's not even like you're not even like, okay, I'll just go along with this just for the sake of the show. You're like, nah, I totally understand why they're doing this. Like, and then you're just watching to see how this plays out. I would love to see if they ever went back and did like another like series
people,
of like older
spin-offs after like cool. This story is done being told. Like, of the stories that you've heard, because you've gone back like thousands of years, you've gone back like 300 years.
Yeah, they jumped a lot.
You've gone back like
really pay attention if you're going to watch this, because like I had to say
because Robert's Rebellion was like 17 years ago, so they went over that.
I would really want to see Robert's Rebellion.
Aegon the Conqueror was like 300 years ago. Bran the Builder and like the First Men and the Andal invasion, that was like thousands of years ago.
Right.
So like you're already getting like little snippets. Like so if there was to be a spin-off of the show,
I want to see Aegon.
Aegon the Conqueror.
I would like to see that, because I feel like this is a repetition. First of all, also, I think thinking about it, I think it was Wildfire that took out the Targaryens or the Valyrian.
The Doom. I was going to talk about the Doom of Valyria.
The Doom of Valyria, I think it was Wildfire, or some type of that, which is kind of both a cataclysmic event and also their own downfall for their own sorcerer.
They just blew themselves up.
So I think they blew themselves up, and I think the reason that the Targaryens survived were because they were on an island far away from that, and that's why they were kind of watching that city burn.
Well, the Targaryens are descendants of Valyria.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So they fled to that island.
Oh, okay.
And then that was where they were safe from the wildfire, because it can't. I mean, it gets in the water, but it doesn't like spread through water. Only if it's like in the water, and so the oil is in the water, and so I think. It's all history and lore, but I'm just saying I think that's what that was. But what my point was is that they draw comparisons from that story to now what the new story is, like the three dragons with Daenerys trying to cut, or Aegon.
Okay, if you want to go that route, so
I want to see that story.
If you are seeing parallels between that,
I see a ton of parallels between that.
So. There was not only three dragons, but
they're all the same color.
But they actually rode the dragons, like Aegon and his sisters. So who would be the dragon riders if?
That's what I was trying to think about right now.
Obviously, Daenerys would ride the big one. Or maybe there's characters that you don't know yet. Or
maybe there's characters I know, because I really don't see Jorah riding a dragon.
Okay.
Not right now, at least. I mean, I guess I could, but what would that really like?
Okay.
So that means that it's either A, she has relatives she doesn't know, because it has to be relatives. Like, it wouldn't make any sense, even though in real life you can make your own family. In this show, it's really about family ties and bloodlines, and that's like huge in this show. Like, even with Robert tying his like little bit of bloodline to the Targaryens, giving him a little bit more rule, giving him a little bit more rule. We're also talking about that in a second. I didn't realize how much there was going to be I wanted to talk about.
Oh, yeah.
But
right?
I thought it was going to be pretty cut and dry. I think that maybe there's some people I don't know of, but I guess right now if I would have to say people ride the dragons, I would either A, say that she rides one and the other two are just like
by themselves
and she controls them, or B, it'd be Jorah and maybe her one of her Dothraki, because even her most trusted. I'm gonna say this too. I think that I hate because I can't just say stuff because I'm scared that I'm gonna get it ruined from you. But I'm gonna look away. I think that Daenerys eventually is gonna use the dragons to fight off the White Walkers because obviously fire beats them, and I feel like that's a huge advantage to like their side of the fight if you look at it in like a grand scheme of things. So the people who would be riding dragons with her into that battle are going to be much different than the people riding dragons into fighting to take over the kingdom. So I don't think she'll have anyone riding to fight into the kingdom, but to fight the White Walkers in that bigger peril, I think there'll be two other people.
So it would be slightly different than history then, because there were no White Walkers during Aegon's conquest 300 years ago.
No, it wasn't.
Because the White Walkers like thousands of years ago.
Yeah, and then went into like hibernation or slumber. So it'll be a little bit different.
Okay, because that is very interesting. That like everyone does want to draw parallels, being like, "Oh, is history repeating itself? Is history repeating itself?" But if you go down that route,
no, I don't think it's repeating itself. But I think there's stark comparisons that can be drawn.
Okay,
and I think things that have happened will come to take place again, but
slightly different.
Slightly different, exactly. Okay. Just because that's enhanced like life. I mean, things are going to happen a little bit differently.
Well, yeah, and learning from your past mistakes.
Robert, I'm curious to see. I wonder if Robert knew. Either Robert. First of all, Robert's not the type to sustain battle wounds. Unless that's just an easy cop-out. His battle wounds that he sustained doesn't make sense. First of all, if you're going to be the conqueror, why would you give your own personal
like the
healer,
day? Oh, right.
The two
Barristan Selmy,
which I get. That's like honorable and like that's cool that you gave him credit, but it's like, no way is that at all smart on your level to give away. Because then, he trusts Ned, but then it makes me think if he thought that he was going to lose. So either A, he didn't know that Tywin was going to actually sack the city, and he was worried that he was going to lose that first battle and sent Ned instead of him, just in case he lost to then be able to still keep it. So he kind of almost betrayed Ned, but not really. And then he got surprised by Tywin taking the city and helping him, so then he honored that help by taking Cersei, because that's the only reason he even won in the first place. Right. Or because he was constantly outnumbered, even into the last battle, so maybe he thought there was no way he was going to be able to take King's Landing, but still wanted to be able to fight. But
I think they said in the Trident he was only outnumbered by 5,000, which sounds like, but like 40,000 to 35,000, like it's not like.
Well, then but that's one battle, though. Right. Because then once he loses all those people, he has to go then again fight into the King's Landing. So then that makes me think. Ned going. I'm curious to see. So Ned walked in on the mountain.
No, he walked in on Jaime.
No, but I thought he was watching the mountain rape, or I
think he heard about it.
And I thought they were showing the thing of him like having to like knowing that the mountain raped that girl and stuff. I thought that show. Okay, maybe it didn't show that. I thought that's what it was showing. So then, never mind about that then.
Okay.
So then, what else? There's something else I wanted to bring up then too.
Well, you were talking about Martell rape.
Did they all die?
The Martells?
No, he said one. Going with the lore, the mountains. There's something to that. I don't know what
they killed all of the royal family that was still in King's Landing, but there was but Viserys and his mom. Well, his mom was pregnant with Daenerys, so Viserys and Rhaella were taken back to Dragonstone. But all the other Targaryens were killed.
No, I'm talking about the Martells.
Martells.
I'm talking about the princess or whatever who's the queen of rape. In rape.
Sorry, the princess. Yeah,
the princess in rape. There's two motives with rape.
So
A, motivation for frustration, or B, motivation for bloodline.
All right, let's talk about Rhaegar for a little bit, because a lot of this deals with Rhaegar. Originally, Tywin Lannister was trying to get Cersei to marry Rhaegar.
Right.
But the Targaryens are like, you're not good enough to be married to in the Targaryen bloodline. So they married him off to the Martells, who, unbowed, unbent, unbroken, they never actually were conquered, but they married into the bloodline. So, the Targaryens and the Martells were pretty close. So Rhaegar married Elia Martell.
Right. Martell.
And so Rhaegar was going to be the heir after the Mad King, but Rhaegar died at the Trident
By
Robert Baratheon. And then when King's Landing got sacked, his wife was still alive, Elia Martell, and she and her kids, they killed her kids in front of her.
Right.
The Mountain raped her. The Mountain killed her.
Okay, so then never mind then. Okay, so then it was just rape and kill. I was trying to see if that carried on, but no. Okay, so then they raped and killed then.
No, I'm pretty sure Ned walked in on Jaime shortly after he stabbed the Mad King in the back.
Okay, yeah, I saw that. That was him walking in. He saw them, and they had the conversation. Okay, and then he left. Well, at first he was mad about everything that had happened.
Yeah,
but that's why I thought he said he was mad about the rape too. I thought they were saying he was frustrated, not just because.
Because he probably heard about it. I don't know if he actually witnessed it, but he's just that's a dishonorable thing. You killed the children. You killed the children. And Robert's like, well, it's war. It's not murder. It's war.
Okay.
All right, so there's no weirwood trees in the south. So everyone that worships the old gods, like the children of the forest and the first men who the Stark are descendants of, you notice that there's those the trees with the red tears and whatever.
Yeah.
Like in Winterfell.
Yeah.
They used to be all over. Yeah. But when the Andals invaded, they started chopping them down, and so now they're really only in the north. Right. And there was that one island, the Eye or whatever, that had a bunch of where they signed a pact with the First Men. Yeah, I think that about covers it.
Yeah. Martell's in the mountain.
Martell in the mountain. You said Robert not going to King's Landing might have been because he was afraid, and so you kind of talked about.
There's something there too.
Okay. Yeah.
I just don't know what the motivation behind that is, but there's going to be some big reveal of why he didn't go. Because that doesn't make any sense why he wouldn't just go.
So yeah, I'm glad that we watched that.
Yeah, I love that. That was huge.
Yeah.
That was so. I'm curious to see what the hell they're going to talk about in season 2 or season. Is there more for each one?
Yeah, there's a lore for all 6. Well, and this was kind of Cliff Notes too.
This thing was, and there's only told by so many people. There's so many other people to be told by.
Right, and they haven't talked about Stannis at all or Davos. Those are characters that weren't even introduced in season 1.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
you got to see that whole side of it as well.
And the history of the Starks was 2 minutes at the very end there.
Yeah, you're right.
So they had the history of 5 of the houses. Was it? They talk about House Aaron's founding, House Lannister's founding, House Tyrell's founding.
No,
just
barely. Just really, really early.
And then Targaryen. Did I ever say Targaryen?
Targaryen, yeah. They told Targaryen multiple times.
Did they even talk about Tullys all that much?
No. They didn't talk about the Tullys, or they only talked about the Aarons really briefly. They didn't talk about the Tullys at all.
The Martell's founding.
No, they didn't talk about.
So yeah, there's still plenty that they could probably talk about.
But man, no, I definitely recommend watching those. That was much more full of a picture.
And we're gonna watch season 2 right now.
Can't wait.